whatever you're doing right now needs to stop. You gotta walk away from those talking heads on your TV. You gotta stop watching that reality garbage that's poisoning your brain. You need to read between the lines and search for some deeper meaning in this life, because you're listening to Arif Ali and it's time to disconnect. Are we there yet? Are we really there yet? We like to talk about being equal, whether it's racial equality, gender equality, how we live our lives financially, how we live our lives culturally, religiously, but are we really there? I don't think we're close. The names Trayvon Martin, Marissa Alexander, and Jordan Davis have proved this beyond a shadow of a doubt, that we are not equal, we are not treated like we're equal, and we don't live like we're equal. Now, these three situations have created a giant chasm that will now never be shut. The thing is, I'm from Vancouver, BC. I don't live in the US. I don't come from a state like Florida that lets you have a gun, pull the trigger on somebody, and say that I felt threatened, so I took his life. That doesn't exist in my realm. In Vancouver, the people that have guns normally belong in jail. The people that have guns that go out and kill people are normally also the ones that have a trunk full of cocaine, or that are dealing heroin, or that are gangbangers. And we don't have to worry about that because we don't deal in those circles. But in the US, you have this right called the right to bear arms. Probably the most dangerous right ever given to a citizen. Because a citizen with a handgun that is given the ability to think that, hey, this gun right here, I could pull the trigger and take someone's life. End it. Flatline. Never coming back. Does any one citizen deserve that power? I don't even think cops can handle that power. But yet, you have a right, as an American citizen, to pull the trigger on somebody and end their life? Here's the deal. We're in a situation where we're talking about the haves and the have-nots. Now, Trayvon Martin may never have been arrested for anything. Jordan Davis may never have been arrested for anything. Marissa Alexander may never have been arrested for anything. But the situation that created the hostilities that have put them in their current predicaments are dictated by poverty and race. Now, you might shake your head and say, oh, here we go. Same old liberal arguments. This guy's going to spew some nonsense about how they're poor and they didn't have all the opportunities. Well, you know what? I am. Because it's the truth. And the reason I can say this is I didn't grow up rich. My parents weren't wealthy. We weren't well off. We weren't broke. But we weren't in a situation where we could go on vacation every year, or where my dad could afford to take us all out for a vacation for 3 months at a time in the summer. We didn't have that. My vacation was the park. My friends were going to Hawaii. My white friends were going to Hawaii. They were going to Paris and Europe and all these exotic places. And we stayed in Vancouver. There was nothing wrong with that. But I'm saying that these small divisions create a learning in a child's mind that, wait a minute, why do they have it better than I do? Now, this is the Vancouver, BC. I live in Canada. We're fairly liberal. Things are pretty decent for us. My parents raised me with the thought that in my mind, I can grow up and be somebody. I can grow up and do something. I had hope. I had hope in my mind that if I go to school and I get good grades, I can go to university, I can get a good job, and I can have a decent life. In the hood, in the United States, it doesn't work that way. You know, you may have your Jay-Z's and your Master P's that come up out of the hood and do something incredibly exceptional with their lives and change their lives forever, end up on the cover of Forbes magazine. But that's not the majority. That is a very, very small minority, a small percentile. For the majority of the kids in the hood, what they are used to seeing is the same cycle. You grow up in the hood, you live in the hood, you die in the hood. You don't have the opportunity to go out and get a higher education. You don't have the opportunity to go out and get a great job that'll pay you $50,000, $60,000 a year. Those opportunities are not afforded to you. Lack of a proper education system, lack of a proper healthcare system, lack of choices for nutritional food, lack of community centers, lack of proper mentors. All of these things in the hood contribute to the hood mentality that keeps people in the hood. And now you can disagree with me, that's fine, but the facts are the facts. When you grow up in the hood and all you see are conditions of the hood, you will live in the hood and you will die in the hood. Whether your mom was a crackhead, whether you didn't have a dad, or even if you did have two parents that were struggling, working hard every day, trying to put food on the table, trying to live a good life, an honest life, right by the law. If both parents are making minimum wage, you cannot afford a decent living. You can't own your own home. You can't own your own car. How are you going to send a kid to college? How are you going to send a kid to university? What motivation does this teenager have to do well in school? Where's the motivation? There is no motivation because they know the only ways they're getting out of the hood is through sports or through hip hop or through some other form of media that's going to make them a superstar. Does that happen to every kid in the hood? No. So what happens to that kid that grows up in the hood every single day and sees everybody around him that looks just like him suffering from these conditions? And then one day, he's exposed to somebody. He's exposed to a Martin Luther King. He's exposed to a Malcolm X. He's exposed to a Harriet Tubman, a Muhammad Ali. And he's exposed to the fact that a lot of his heroes, a lot of his mentors were taken at a young age. And not just taken, brutally murdered. Brutally murdered by a white man. And they don't see it as a white man. They see it as the entire white race. When you're 12, 13, 14 years old, and there's somebody you look up to and you admire, and they're gone at a young age because somebody decided that maybe you were too dangerous to live a longer life. They don't see that as a martyr. They don't see that as my hero got taken away. They get angry. And they want to take out that anger on every single person that they believe wronged them. So they leave the hood. They see the cities. They see the suburbs. They walk down the street with picket fences and beautiful homes and manicured lawns and a luxury sedan in front. And they see a white family get into that house. They don't think to themselves, oh, that's such a cute family. They think, you know what? Fuck them. I want that and I want it now. But I can't get it going to school. I can't get it working 9 to 5. I can't get it grinding all day, all night, minimum wage trying to make ends meet. It won't come to me. So what ways can I make a lot of money really fast, multiply my capital, and get what they have? I'll sell drugs. I'll pimp. I'll steal. I'll rob. I will do what it takes because I want that now. And you know what the thing is? This is what George Zimmerman saw. Now, Trayvon Martin wasn't a drug dealer. He wasn't a pimp. He wasn't robbing people. But George Zimmerman looked at him as all of those things. He looked at him as a drug dealer, as a robber, as a criminal. He prosecuted him before he even said his name, spoke to him, met him, or knew him. He followed him, harassed him, was repeatedly told by the police, don't engage him, don't engage him, leave him alone. But he refused to. He wanted to play Dirty Harry. He wanted to be the good guy. He wanted to be the cowboy with the white hat taking out the criminal. And so be it. He tried. He went up to Trayvon. He engaged him and he got his ass beat. He got knocked out. He got laid flat. And to rectify the situation, to bring back his pride, he cocked back the hammer, pulled the trigger. Bye-bye, Trayvon. Trayvon Martin, at the age of 17, bleeds to death because some fat, overweight fuck decided, I want to take his life. The sad part is, George Zimmerman's defense was, well, he beat me. He was smashing my head into the ground. Every single one of George Zimmerman's injuries was fixed with a Band-Aid. If your head was being bashed into the ground, I would think you'd need more than a Band-Aid. Now let's shift gears a little bit. Jordan Davis, 17 years old, sitting in an SUV with his friends. Michael Dunn, white man, walks past the SUV. These guys are blasting their music loud. Michael Dunn says, turn your music down. You're going to tell a bunch of teenagers in an SUV to turn the music down that they're listening to? What kind of reaction do you think you're going to get? Even if they're your own children, what kind of reaction do you think you're going to get? Are they going to comply? Are they going to say, yes, sir, let me turn the music down? You know what they're going to say? Get the fuck out of here. That's exactly what happened. Jordan Davis and his friends, get the fuck out of here. You don't know me. Get out of here. What did Michael Dunn do? Pulled out a gun, pulled the trigger. Bye-bye, Jordan Davis. A 17-year-old kid got shot and killed because he refused to turn the volume down on music that he was listening to in an SUV. He wasn't disrupting anybody in a house. It wasn't a wild house party. He wasn't blasting a music in a public place to disrupt people. He was in a vehicle closed with his friends. But Michael Dunn left the scene, met his girlfriend, had a pizza, all while Jordan Davis bled to death. You can't even make this shit up. This is not even from a movie. This is real life. And then you have Marissa Alexander, a woman who was being abused by her ex-husband, was repeatedly beat by her ex-husband, had a restraining order against him. He came to her. The first thing she thought of, I'm going to be abused again. So what did she do? She took the matter into her own hands. She went to the garage, got her gun, fired a warning shot into the air. Nobody bled. Nobody died. Nobody was hurt. She got 20 years for firing a warning shot. George Zimmerman walks the streets safe today for killing a teenager. You tell me there's no parallel. They're both in Florida. They both could have abided by the stand your ground laws. So why did Marissa Alexander get 20 years and George Zimmerman not get a day in prison? You know, you could say it's a white and black thing. George Zimmerman's not white. He's Latino. But what does he look like? When I see George Zimmerman, I don't see a Latino. When I hear his name, I don't think Latino. I see a white man. Marissa Alexander was obviously a black woman. So when a judge looks at George Zimmerman and a judge looks at Marissa Alexander, where's the differentiation? Why does one person walk the streets as a free man and the other person get 20 years in jail? She'll never get to see her kids again. She'll never get to see her family again. And if they do see her, they're going to see her behind prison bars. What kind of a message does that send to her children? Her children see their mother behind bars because she was defending herself from an abuser. From an abuser. Not a friend. Not someone she loved. Not a husband. From someone that beat her. She was defending her life from someone that beat her, and she gets prison. What kind of message does that send to these kids? That basically says that you have to take the shit you get because you live in a society where nobody gives a fuck about you. You can say I'm lying, but if I'm lying, you tell me the truth. How is there any kind of a parallel that reflects reality here? We are 50 plus years removed from civil rights. The civil rights movement that Martin Luther King and Malcolm X gave their lives for, that Muhammad Ali gave his freedom for, that millions of citizens across North America died for, so that white people, black people, Chinese people, Indian people, Aboriginal people, people of all kinds from all over the world could live in this country as one. We don't belong to different races. We belong to the human race. So why do we sit here today and have so much division where we can't even determine what's law and what's not? What's just and what isn't? Where's the determination? Who's to judge? Who can say that because you grew up a certain way and the other person grew up in the hood, that person that grew up in the hood doesn't hold the same value or deserve the same rights that the justice system is supposed to uphold? Now, I live in Vancouver, BC. I go through a very mild form of this. The only thing that I really see as racism is fear. And you might think that's silly. But when I say fear, I mean fear in very obvious ways. Like, I'll get into the elevator in my own building with my 2 kids. And an older white lady will walk in. She'll greet us. She'll say hi. She'll even smile. We'll part ways. We'll get into the same elevator. I'm by myself. She's by herself. The difference now is she doesn't want to talk to me. She doesn't want to smile. She doesn't want to say hi. What she does want to do is clutch her purse really tight. I'm sorry. I make a good living. I don't have to rob anybody. But for you to even assume that because you are by yourself and I'm by myself, that I'm a threat, that shows something wrong with society. When I'm driving my Cadillac home from work and I'm not speeding and I'm not drinking and driving and I'm not smoking and I'm abiding by the rules and a police officer decides to pull me over, come to the front of my vehicle, ask me for my license and registration, and I reply with, what did I do wrong? And he tells me, your vehicle is insured under a woman's name. I say, okay. How do you know that if you didn't run my plates? Well, he replies that I can run your plates, so you're driving a vehicle that's insured to a woman. I say, I understand that. That woman is my wife. So now what? So he asks me for my license and registration, walks away, takes his time, Maybe he looks at porn on his laptop, comes back 10 minutes later, gives me my license and registration back and says, have a nice day. Really? Have a nice day? You can racially profile me because I drive a nice car, and you come back and tell me have a nice day? What if I said, you know what, pig, fuck you? What would happen? You know what would happen? I would end up in cuffs. Now, I talk to my friends about this stuff of all races, and they don't believe me. You know, they say stuff like, come on, that doesn't happen. It almost comes off like a shock to them, like this kind of stuff doesn't happen in BC. Well, I can tell you from the multiple times that I've been pulled over, there is a condition that permeates amongst law officials, and it's called DWB, driving while brown. This is very mild. It's an inconvenience. I'm sure it's against the law, but it's an inconvenience. There's a much larger problem here. And the larger problem here is how we view each other as a race. Now, whether you like it or not, when you meet somebody for the first time, you automatically create a judgment. Whether you think they're broke, they're rich, they're this or that, you create a judgment. What we have to start to get over is the judgment. Why cannot we view everybody just as we view ourselves? When you look at yourself, you don't judge yourself. You don't automatically come to a conclusion about what you are, who you are, how you live your life. You see yourself as a human being, and that's it. So why cannot we apply those same conditions to everybody else that we meet, everybody else that we encounter? We need to start thinking and living the way we want the world to be for our children. And if you want that world to be a world of segregation, so be it. That world is going to be very small and is going to become very cloudy. Statistics now show that the majority of births today are mixed race births as opposed to single race births. So what that means eventually is that there will be more mixed breed people on this planet than people of a single race. If you hate now, who are you going to hate when the world is mixed? Who are you going to pick on? Who are you going to point your finger at? Who are you going to say is inferior because of their race when we eventually all become one race? Are you going to hide in a hole? Are you going to go bury yourself somewhere? Are you going to go find some kind of a bomb shelter, lock yourself underground and live there forever? Because I'm telling you, it's coming. It's happening. The sad part is, as of 2011, there were 7,000 hate crimes reported in the United States. 50% of these were racially biased race crimes. What does this say about who we are as human beings? Are we not over this yet? Are we not at a place where we can look at each other without hate, live with each other without hate, talk to each other without hate? Are we that small-minded? I'm sorry. I think we are. I don't want to say that we're hopeless, but I want to say we're pretty close to hopeless. At this point in time, I think what we need to do is take the time to get to know each other. And you might think it's corny and say, oh, it's hokey, I don't want to know you, you don't have to know me. You really don't. You really don't have to know anybody. But what kind of world do you want to live in? What kind of world do you want your kids to live in? Do you want your kids to live in a world where we don't talk to each other, where we ignore each other, where we walk past each other and can't say hi without getting a dirty look back? Do you want to live in that world? Honestly, I don't want to live in that world. I want to live in a world where I can walk down the street, smile at the person walking past me, maybe even a head nod, maybe even a hi, without getting an uncomfortable, awkward silence back. We're all human beings. We're all in this fight together. The sooner we realize that, the better off we'll be.